and join us in the City of Milpitas August 12th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. And the chair will lead the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. And so would everyone join me on the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate your participation. And next agenda item here is roll call. Will the Commission Secretary conduct a roll call, please?
Good evening, everybody. I'll now take attendance. Commissioner Ablaza, Commissioner Albana.
Present.
Oh, there she is. Okay. Vice Chair Alcorn.
Here.
Commissioner Belong.
Present.
Commissioner Chua.
Here.
Commissioner Chuan.
Here.
Chair Tao.
Here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the record will reflect Commissioner Blaza has not joined the meeting. And the next agenda item here is a conflict of interest declaration with the city attorney. Poll the commissioners, please.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I ask whether any of the commissioners have a conflict of interest on any of the items before you tonight. Okay, let the record reflect none to that question.
Thank you very much, City Attorney. We appreciate your polling. And the next agenda item here is the approval of the agenda. Staff, any changes? Planning directors, are any changes to tonight's agenda?
No, there are no changes to tonight's agenda. Thank you.
Commissioners? Seeing none? Seeing none, may I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So we have Commissioner Chuan's motion and
If we could, sorry, Chair, if we could just have the motions by roll call vote, please.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. So if I can have Vice Chair, if I can have your vote, please.
Yes, aye.
Commissioner Chua,
Aye.
Commissioner Chong,
Aye.
Commissioner Blaza has not joined. Commissioner Belong,
Aye.
Commissioner Albana,
Aye.
the chair is aye as well. Thank you very much. So passed 6-0. Thank you. And the next agenda item is announcements. Commissioners, any announcements, please?
Chair, I have an announcement.
Please, Vice Chair.
I just wanted to disclose and put on the record that on Monday, the chair and I met with city staff to just go over the agenda and ask our questions and do our best to get our questions answered. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And I just want to clarify, by met, we virtually met.
Correct.
Thank you very much. And staff, any announcements?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a couple of things to share with you tonight. So work continues on the general plan update. We're very close to releasing the draft general plan. I'm happy to announce after these many years of working on general plan, we expect that the draft will be released within the next 2 weeks. So we're just putting the finishing touches on that. When it's released, we will send copies to the City Council, members of the General Plan Advisory Committee or GPAC, and also to the Planning Commission with a cover memo. And it will also be posted online. So and that's again is the draft general plan, and we'll be circulating that for public comment. We're also, you should have all today received an email from Liz regarding the general plan, and we're hoping to have a joint session with the Planning Commission and a joint study session with the Planning Commission and the City Council on the last Tuesday in September. So that's September 29th. We have not yet confirmed that date. It's still tentative, but if you could pencil that in on your calendars, we're hoping to have the full, all members of both groups. And I know Rochelle from the city manager's office, Rochelle Curry, is still polling the council to see if they're available, and we're checking with the planning commission. So if you haven't responded to Liz's email yet, please do so. So of course, along with the general plan update, the accompanying document is the environmental impact report, or the EIR, which is required under the California Environmental Quality Act. The EIR is underway. Yesterday, we held what's called the notice of preparation meeting. This puts all interested parties on notice that the city is now ready to prepare the environmental document for the general plan update. That's underway. We expect, it's anticipated that the EIR will be completed by mid-October, and it will also be released for a required 45-day review period. And then during that period, likely, or we're currently planning to present the general plan to, in a formal way, to the Planning Commission for your recommendation to the council in late November. Hopefully our second meeting in November, that will be ready to go. Now that will be during the 45-day comment period on the EIR. So those two can happen concurrently. And then when the 45-day comment period is ended, we'll package all that together and it will go to the council for final approval. That will be hopefully at the end of the year. It may extend into January, but we're very happy to finally see a very bright light at the end of the tunnel for the general plan. This is a very important document for the city, and we're almost there. So I'm happy to share some of those details with you. I don't know if you have any questions on that particular announcement.
I have one question here for Director Thomas. So the EIR consultant is the same group from the previous iteration?
Meaning who's preparing it, or?
Correct.
Yes, our same consultants, de novo, will be doing the EIR. They have a number of sub-consultants working on them on various technical studies, noise, transportation, and so forth, greenhouse gas emissions. They are the primary consultants on the environmental document as well.
Thank you very much. Questions from any other commissioners? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. And the next
Chair, I'm sorry, excuse me for interrupting.
Please.
I have a note that we have two attendees have joined the meeting by phone, and I believe we only have their phone numbers. If I could ask them to identify themselves. One is a 714-305-2082. If you can you can unmute yourself and identify yourself.
IT may have to unmute them.
Yeah, or IT, if you can unmute them, we need to have identification of 714.
Everyone can unmute themselves.
Oh. If someone's calling in on that number. The other number is 734-306-5309. Can you unmute yourself and identify yourself?
Yeah, the phones will not be able to, so you probably will have to manually unmute them.
Are those numbers recognized by anyone on the meeting? Are those? Oh, there's one. 734. You're unmuted. Can you identify yourself?
Hi there. Sorry that took a second. This is Ashley Nance with Holland and Knight for the 600 Barber Project.
Great. Thank you. And how about the other number, 714-305-2082? There we go.
Planning Director, what would you like to do with that unidentified number?
Well, they're unmuted now. 714-305. Hi.
Okay. Yeah, hi, sorry. My name is Yi, and I'm here for the 600 Barber Lane project.
Okay. Are you a member of the public or a member of the project team?
Member of the project team from BDK Capital.
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone is accounted for.
Also, this is Thomas Rubio from Lion Living. My account is listed as cost center, and this is Fields Master Plan Program.
Thank you very much. And proceeding on to the next agenda item, it's a public forum. Those interested may address the Planning Commission in writing on any subject not on tonight's agenda. Commenters may type their name and city of residence for the record, and the remarks read aloud will be limited to 3 minutes or less. Comments submitted via online form will be read aloud by the secretary. As an item not listed on the agenda, no response is required from the city staff or the Planning Commission, and no action can be taken. Planning Commission may instruct staff to place the item on the future meeting agenda. So Ms. Medina, any public comments?
Hi, Chair. We received 2 public comments. Shall I start?
Please, thank you.
The first one is from Jim Acosta. His address is in Milpitas. His comment says, there is something very troubling that came out of the Planning Commission. The new chair and vice chair are doing very well, but it bothers me how Evelyn Chua can use a city ADU event and use that event to campaign for city council. This is illegal. She should be held accountable, but no one seems to care. Evelyn is just on the Planning Commission to give herself a name, so she might win. Chair, vice chair, planning director, and city manager, this violation rests on your shoulders. I also see that the horrible old vice chair is running for city council. Do you all remember when she got up and tried to leave a meeting right before a vote? I do. What is going on with the Planning Commission? Explain yourself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next comment is from Stephen Bunnell, 211 Seacliff Drive. His comment is, Dear City of Milpitas Planning Commissioners, last week I sent an email to the Director of Planning regarding the proposal for a new 4,000 square foot home to be built at 250 Piedmont Road. Most of my questions were answered, except why the lot was approved 40 years ago was not developed the same time as the other approved lots during that time. I have put in a public information request with the city clerk's office. I am requesting staff to check back in the records to see what the reason the lot was not developed then. I am worried that due to the State Department of Water Resources 54-inch water main crossing near the lot may have been the reason no home was built there. The water is the source for 1/3 of our drinking water. I am requesting the staff delay the zoning meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. until my public information request is answered. Could you consider ruling to approve or disapprove the project to your commission's next meeting? I don't feel it is appropriate for staff to review and approve projects along with scenic corridor, even when it's from previously approved lot.
Thank you. And the second item here, if I recall, that's on the planning director's zone administrator review for tomorrow.
Yeah, and if I may, I can provide a quick update on that. We discussed this afternoon in light of the public records request that was received by the city this afternoon. So the meeting will be held tomorrow because it's scheduled as a hearing, but I will be asking for the item to be continued to next week so that staff has sufficient time to review the records. These are very old records and they're not available online or in electronic form. So staff actually has to go into City Hall and find the records and pull them out if they're available. So this was long before any of us were here. I'm hoping that the records still exist, but we will do the necessary due diligence in finding those records and making the information available. And because of that, we will continue the item until next week so that we can respond.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Director Thomas. We appreciate the clarification. And
We have one more comment, Chair.
Please.
This comment is from Miss Barbara Navarro, 915 North Hillview Drive. She says, I attended the EIR public meeting this week. The contractor that presented did a great job, but I would like to see the presentation posted. I'm looking forward to reviewing the general plan when it is posted. I have several items I am interested in.
Okay.
And I'd like to address Miss Barbara Navarro's request for the presentation. The presentation is now posted on the planning webpage under environmental documents, under the general plan. If you have any questions, you could email me, Miss Barbara Navarro, and I could help navigate you through the website. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, if I can interrupt, I also sent Barbara Navarro a copy of that link. So I would just ask her to check her inbox because I sent that to her earlier this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Planning Manager Gardner. We appreciate it. And any other comments, Ms. Medina?
Let me see. That would be our last comment, Chair.
Thank you very much. And then moving on to the next agenda item, approval of the minutes. Commissioners, any changes to the May 27th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting minutes?
Chair, if I'd like to make a comment before moving to the new item on the agenda, do we need to close the public forum then?
Sure, absolutely. And motion to close the public forum.
I'll make a motion to close the public forum.
And I'll second that. Oh. Evelyn can take that one.
Okay. And I'll go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and do the votes. Vice Chair, you vote.
Aye.
Commissioner Chua.
Aye.
Commissioner Chong.
Aye.
Commissioner Blazo. Commissioner Belong.
Aye.
Commissioner Albana.
Aye.
And the chair's aye as well. Passed 6 ayes and one absent. Thank you very much. And moving on to the next agenda items, approval of the May 27, 2020 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Any comments from commissioners? Staff, any comments?
No comments on the minutes.
I received a couple of edits from Mr. Chair in regards to the voting for the mobile food park, and some grammatical errors.
Yeah, your records is correct. I was looking at the wrong item.
Okay.
So you're my bad. Thank you very much. So may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, a motion approved.
A second.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Albana second. And I'll go down the roll here for vote. Commissioner Vice Chair Alcorn.
Aye.
Commissioner Chua.
Aye.
Commissioner Chuang.
Aye.
Commissioner Belong.
Aye.
Commissioner Albana.
Aye.
And the chair's aye as well, 6 ayes. Thank you very much. And moving on to the next agenda item, as a public hearing. We have two public hearing items this evening. The 600 Barbara Lane on the first item coming up, and as well as the Fields Master Sign Program on the second public hearing item. So if I may direct to the staff for the public hearing section. Director Thomas, you need to unmute.
There we go. I say all my best things when I'm on mute. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted a few introductory comments. We're very pleased to present the first public hearing item to you tonight. We've been working for over a year with the applicants on this particular item. In the bigger picture, this particular site has a longer history with the city, but we are very pleased with the project as it has come through the process and is ready to be presented to you tonight with a recommendation for approval. Our senior planner, Rosalind Thompson, is here to present the staff report. It will, the entitlements include, or the request includes, a site development permit, a conditional use permit, a tree removal permit, and also certification of an addendum to the original environmental impact report that was completed for the original project. And with that, I'll turn the time over to Rosalind to present the staff report. And then, as you can see on your screen, there are a number of representatives from the applicant here, and we also have a presentation for you tonight as well. With that, I'll turn it to Rosalind.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. In this presentation, I will give a brief overview of the project at 600 Barber Lane, followed by the project's history, give a summary of the entitlements sought, go over the architecture and other features of the project, and then conclude my presentation with the environmental review process and staff recommendation. Next slide, please. The applicant requests to construct a 326,500 square foot mixed-use podium style building with 4 5-story residential towers and 1 single-story amenity building built over a 4-story podium. The project proposes a total of up to 372 residential units, including 165 studio units, 118 one-bedroom, and 89 two-bedroom units, with 56 of those units affordable to those with low and very low incomes. Additionally, the project proposes up to 5,500 square feet of retail space and 12,800 square feet of office space. A total of up to 533 parking spaces are contained within a multi-level, partially subterranean parking garage. Next slide. The zoning designation for the project site is very high density mixed use, or MXD3, with a high-rise overlay. The zoning code permits mixed-use developments by right in the MXD3 zoning district, as long as all uses within the development are permitted. The residential, office, and commercial components of the project are all permitted uses by right in the zoning code. The sites to the north and south are zoned general commercial, or C2, and the site to the west is zoned industrial park, MP. Interstate 880 is to the east of the project site. Next slide. So here is a project vicinity map. The project site is approximately 3 acres, rectangular shaped, and was previously improved with a 20,000 square foot building, outdoors display area, utilities, and landscaping. There are no built structures presently on the site except for remnant paving and a building foundation associated with prior development. Surrounding land uses include commercial buildings to the north and south, and office use to the west, and Interstate 880 to the east. Next slide. As for the site history, the project site is the former location of Bilings Chevrolet. The Bilings Chevrolet building was built in 1992, approved on May 27th, 1992. The car dealership closed approximately in 2003, and the building was demolished in 2016. At the time the dealership was approved, the site was designated and zoned general commercial by both the general plan and zoning code, respectively. In 2008, a prior applicant proposed to redevelop the site with an 18-story, 277-foot tall mixed-use building, also known as Landmark Tower. Among other entitlements, that project required a general plan amendment to change the land use designation from general commercial to boulevard high-density mixed use, a zoning map amendment to rezone the parcel from general commercial to very high-density mixed use, and with a high-rise overlay district to accommodate the development. The project also required a tentative map, site development permit, and conditional use permit. At that time, the city prepared an environmental impact report because it was determined that the proposed project would result in potentially significant environmental impacts. On November 18, 2008, the City Council certified the EIR and approved the entitlements for the proposed project. On April 5th, the city approved a revised project and certified an addendum to the originally certified EIR for the 2008 project. Next slide. So here's a table comparing the past projects and the current proposed project. If you look at the 2016 project, there was an increased number of units from 375 to 450. There was a decrease in the amount of retail space from 148,805 square feet to 42,000 square feet, a decrease in the amount of office space from 48,960 square feet to 8,000 square feet, and an increase in the maximum height of development from 277 feet to 285 feet. The proposed project reduces the number of dwelling units, commercial retail space, the maximum height and number of parking spaces, but increases the office area compared to the 2016 project. However, it is significantly less than the 2008 project. Next slide. As for the project entitlements, the current applicant requests a site development permit to construct the project, a tree removal permit to remove 11 protected trees, a conditional use permit to allow an increase of the maximum floor area, or FAR, from 2.0 to 2.5 in the MXD3 zoning district, and an environmental assessment to review and certify an addendum to the previously certified 2008 Landmark Towers EIR. In addition, the project proposes to restrict 11% of the units to low-income residents and 4% to very low-income residents. So to note, housing projects that restrict at least 10% of the number of units to low-income residents, such as the proposed project, are considered qualifying projects under the state density bonus law. Although the project qualifies for density bonus and 2 incentives concessions under the state density bonus law, neither are requested at this time. However, the project is eligible for an unlimited number of waivers from development standards, which would physically prevent the project from being constructed at the permitted density, as well as reduced parking ratios. The project has requested the reduced parking ratios under the state density bonus law, which are specifically 1 parking space for studio 1-bedroom units and 2 parking spaces for 1-bedroom units, and elimination of guest parking. The applicant has also prepared a conceptual signage proposal, but has deferred submittal for the sign permit at this time. Staff has concluded as a condition of approval the requirement that the applicant apply for a sign permit for any proposed signage at the site. Next slide. So the next 3 slides are project elevations, the front, rear, north, and south. So as far as the overall design of the project, it could be characterized as a mix of modern architectural styles. The design of the building incorporates cement plaster, glass, and fiberboard panels and metal accents. Each facade is modulated in various ways with projected and inset balconies, a variety of color and finishes, a diversity of fenestration placement patterns, and various facade face projections that capture shadows and change during the day. A neutral color palette has been selected for the building. I will defer to the applicant to further detail the architectural features of the project in their presentation. The next 2 slides show the building elevations from the rear, east, and the north and south. So next slide. So that's the project elevation at the rear, or the east elevation. Next slide. So these are project elevations. The one at the top is the north, and the one at the bottom is the south. Next slide. Materials include cement plaster, glass, fiberboard panels, and metal accents in a neutral color palette. So this is a materials board of just demonstrating what materials are going to be used and the color palette of the materials. The applicant will further discuss building material details in their presentation. Next slide. So here's the ground level site plan for the project. The front entrance is oriented to the west, while the rear of the building is set back from your property by an access drive. The zoning code requires a minimum setback of 12 feet to a maximum setback of 25 feet in the MXD3 zoning district. However, the zoning code allows a front yard setback as close to the back of easement rather than a minimum or maximum setback if a public easement prevents a building from being located at its required minimum or maximum setbacks. Here we have 2 easements, a 30-foot high pressure gas line easement and a 10-foot sanitary sewer and water easement that encroach into the property from the western property line. Both are public easements that prohibit construction of permanent structures within the easements. Therefore, the proposed project will be unable to observe the minimum 12-foot and maximum 12-foot front yard setback required under the zoning code. So instead, the project has proposed a front yard setback of 45.5 feet, which would provide a 5.5-foot clearance between the back of the sanitary sewer and water easement and the structure. The proposed setback of 45.5 feet complies with the requirements of the zoning code. Moreover, given that the fire department needs a minimum of 26-foot clear width unobstructed roadway, and that the project requires a minimum of 2 independent approved fire apparatus access points, the project is required to provide 2 26-foot wide curb cuts as shown in the site plan. Next slide. Here's the podium level site plan with the 4 residential buildings surrounding a shared courtyard. Next slide. So here are the typical floor plans of the 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, and studio units in the building. All will have balconies except for those units adjacent to the common courtyard, which will have direct access to the common courtyard. Next slide. So the next two slides will show the proposed landscape plan. The project requests removal of 11 protected trees, including 3 palm trees and 8 fern pine trees. The removed trees will be replaced with 23 24-inch box Trichania conferta trees and 4 Washingtonia robusta trees, 20 to 25 feet in height. Additionally, the project will introduce a 36-inch box Quercus douglasii, 6 24-inch box Laurus nobilis, and additional 20 Washingtonia robusta, 20 to 25 feet throughout the site, as well as a variety of shrubs, 4,318 square feet of sod, and artificial turf to the amenity area. The applicant will go into further detail about whether the trees are deciduous or evergreen, as well as any other details about the landscaping in their presentation of the project. Next slide. So this is the landscape at the podium level. And again, trees and shrubs and sod would be introduced throughout the site. And I will defer to the applicant in their presentation on further detail. Next slide. So here are images of the specimens of the proposed plants in the landscape plan. Next slide. So as discretionary entitlements apply to the 2008 project, as well as the current project, the California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA, applies. On November 18, 2008, the city of Milpitas certified an environmental impact report for the Landmark Tower mixed-use development project, which again was an 18-story mixed-use project at project location. CEQA establishes that an addendum is required when changes or additions are necessary to a project after an EIR is certified, but those changes or additions do not result in new significant environmental impacts or substantial increase of those impacts. There have been no substantial changes in circumstances, or there is no new information regarding any new significant impacts. On April 5th, 2016, the city certified an addendum to the originally certified EIR for a revised project at the same location. Next slide. A second addendum to the 2008 EIR has been prepared to evaluate any environmental impacts of the proposed changes to the approved 2008 project in this current project. The addendum has concluded that there are no new significant environmental impacts or a substantial increase in the severity of those impacts. There have not been any substantial changes in circumstances. And next slide. That there isn't any new information that could have been previously known regarding new significant impacts or a substantial increase in the severity of previously identified impacts. Therefore, a supplemental subsequent EIR is not required for the revised project, and the addendum is attached to the Landmark Tower mixed-use development EIR, or will be attached to the EIR pursuant to the CEQA guidelines. Next slide. Staff recommends the following to the Planning Commission: open and close the public hearing, adopt resolution number 20-013, approving site development permit, tree removal permit, conditional use permit, and environmental assessment subject to the attached conditions of approval, and also adopt resolution number 20-014, approving an addendum to a certified final environmental impact report for the Milpitas Landmark Towers project, adoption of the environmental findings pursuant to CEQA, adoption of the statement of overriding considerations, and a mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and approval of the project. That concludes staff's presentation on the project, and I am available for any questions that the commissioners may have.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. And commissioners, any questions for Ms. Thompson at this point? Any questions? Chair has a couple of questions on the item. Page 25, there's a noting of 372 units of the developed units for this, and also in the same It also has a required residential subtotal of 461. Can you elaborate on that?
The required residential subtotal of 461?
It's a, this is in the parking regulations. Got it. I think I read this incorrectly. My apologies.
Okay, not a problem.
And next questions here is there's an EV parking on the residential levels. Are those open to anyone who wants to park in it, or is this assigned parking to a specific unit?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I will defer to the applicant for details on the availability of the EV parking stalls.
And in terms of the requirement for the green features, the solar panels or gray water loops, is this project grandfathered in from the previous entitlement?
Are you referring to any conditions of approval that were with the previous entitlement, or are you referring to the climate action plan and that the requirements under, or lead requirements? Are
we requiring any solar panels or any kind of and also gray water loop for this particular project?
As far as requirements for gray water, that would come under the climate action plan.
Okay.
And there were discussions about what measures would be undertaken under the climate action plan that the applicant would be undertaking, and I will defer to them to discuss those measures that they will be undertaking.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And so if we may invite the
Mr. Chair. Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
Mr. Shua, please.
Hi. I don't see my. Yeah, I have a couple questions for Ms. Thompson.
Please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Ms. Thompson, that was really a very good presentation because I have a series of questions, and through your presentation, you actually answered most of them, which is really great. So my thing is, just to reiterate, the original, this is on page, where am I? This is actually on page 107 of the project plan, which is yours numbers, I think it's number 7 of your slide. Around there, 6 or 7. Back one more, please. There, that one. So this is really very good. I just want to make clear to everybody, also the people watching tonight. So the original plan is the 375 residential units. So it went from 375 all the way down to 372. And then the commercial, which is, I'm gonna ask that, 148K, 42K, and then 5,500 square feet. Do you know what is the rationale behind that? Or should I wait for the applicant?
You should wait for the applicant.
And also I have that thing with the office space as well as the number of buildings. And one thing that I like that I saw is the height in terms of from 227 feet to 85 feet, 8 stories versus 18 stories. I like that. And that's what I have. And the other one, I'm gonna ask that to the applicant. The other one that I would like to ask you is, it's actually page 9 and 10 of the addendum, which is, I think, number 10 of your slide, around there.
Okay.
It's the allowable units, what is allowed in terms of mixed use, MXD3. You have that.
Are you referring to the, I'm sorry, Commissioner, to
I think it's slide number 10 towards the end.
allowed uses.
Yes,
Okay.
that's important.
Okay.
Do you have it?
The allowed uses as far as the MXD3
Yes.
zoning district. I don't have a slide that shows the allowed uses, but I can look at the zoning code and tell you.
I thought I saw that. I thought I saw you presented it. That's all right. I can ask the applicant.
Okay, but as far as what they're proposing in their building, which is commercial and also office space and residential, those are all allowed uses by right in the MXD3 zoning district.
Okay, good to know. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other comments for staff? Seeing none, if I may invite the applicant to present the project, and if you would just identify yourself and present. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners, good evening. My name is Robert Montano. I'm with Adept Development. We are the representative for BDK Capital, who is the owner and was actually the original 2008 applicant, the 2016 modified project, and now this current project as well. We became involved with BDK Capital in a project in Pasadena where our offices are located. And just as an aside, we're a development company with a standalone architectural company in-house also, as well as a construction company. And so a lot of our decisions that kind of inform our development projects come out of constructability and feasibility. BDK Capital was entitling a project near us and sought our help and sought our help with this project as well. And that's kind of how we got to modifying the project from the 2 towers down to something that I think what we've considered a little bit more right-sized. It's more in keeping with the character in terms of scale and massing of Milpitas. But it also helped us address increasing costs in material that are all kind of a result of just the scale of the economy and the pace of development that was occurring. In doing so, actually also helps us address some of the issues related to the pandemic. Outgrowths, we're seeing constraints in material availability. We're also seeing a major change in the way in which people work. And so the reduction in the commercial square footage from the original proposal down to roughly 13,000 square feet between the retail and the commercial, I think really helps address some of those types of concerns. I want to thank staff for their presentation and all of the time they've spent working with us at doing all of this entitlement package. And I want to thank the city and community of Milpitas for your patience. You've been dealing with an empty lot since 2008, actually beforehand. And so we're excited to move this project forward. So as staff had mentioned, we are looking at a 372 unit apartment building, roughly about 19,000 square feet, 533 parking spaces. We are invoking the SB 1818 provisions to reduce the number of parking, and I'll get back to that in just a second. Again, as staff articulated, we're looking for a conditional use permit, a site development permit, tree removal permit, and of course the environmental assessment to certify the current EIR addendum. The critical important thing here is the project being smaller. It meets the standards of the general plan, meets the standards of the zoning code and specific plan. And as I had mentioned, I think it's just more in keeping with character. Also helps us, again, like I had mentioned, address just kind of critical economic issues as well. We are, I do want to say, in receipt of all of the conditions of approval. We reviewed those. We accept all of those conditions of approval. We're happy to maintain that we will continue to contribute to the fire department for enhanced safety training and equipment, given the amount of new square footage that we're adding to the area. That was something that I think was discussed at the tables very early on with this project in 2008. And then additionally, helping with help fund a shuttle, a community shuttle that will move the public to and from the light rail station. And that kind of gets back to parking and how we've talked about this project in terms of parking. We have eliminated only the visitor parking for the apartments. So we've not reduced the overall apartment parking. We've not reduced the overall commercial parking, but what we have in effect done is implemented a shared use strategy. We don't office or retail will use the spaces in the evening, but we do expect that apartment visitors would use the space in the evening, and they'll essentially share that space. So what we've done in effect is eliminated the vehicular dependent infrastructure that would mostly stay vacant throughout the evening when office space are closed, and would mostly stay vacant during the daytime when apartment visitors are there. So we think it's a really efficient use and kind of strategy of that SB 1818 provision. As mentioned, we're not seeking other kind of incentives or concessions to the code other than the 0.5 FAR bonus, which is also given to us or available to us, I should say, through the conditional use permit. So in that sense, you know, we're adding some FAR under the provisions of the zoning code using the conditional use permit, but at the same token, we're also doing it through the SB 1818 provisions. So I just want to kind of go over those high level things before I turn it over to our lead architect, who is going to kind of address and walk you through the project. I think real quickly to answer a couple of questions that the chair had raised and the commissioners had raised. The EV parking at this point would be available to everyone. So it wouldn't be assigned to anyone. It would be open to the apartment building. What you see in this project thus far is what is required by code. In our other projects, and we're not certain that we can have the capacity here yet, it all depends on the electrical infrastructure. We typically provide a system, it's a backbone, that actually allows us to increase the amount of EV chargers that are available. And it uses a load balancing system. So it's a system that was developed out of a company here in Caltech in Pasadena, and then has since been bought by another company. But it allows us to where we would typically only have the power capacity for, let's say, 10 EV chargers, just for the sake of conversation, to actually increase that to 30 to 40 to 50. And essentially it requires a user kind of input to manage the electricity, and it distributes it on an evenly basis. Gray water, we understand that that's available to us. We would connect to the system for all of our landscaping. And again, like I had mentioned on the commercial square footage reduction, that's really a factor of right sizing the building, reducing the excessive square footage that we didn't think was appropriate, also helping us address the kind of the financial constraints with the increased construction costs, material costs, and material availability. And so with that, I would like to turn this over to Kip Dixon, our design director at Adept, who will continue with the presentation. Thank you, and we are all here should you have any questions or comments for us.
Thank you. And the other presenter, if you can just provide us with a brief presentation, we appreciate it.
Do you have me on there? Yes, you do. Can you all hear me?
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Good. Can we move to the next slide? And while we're moving into the next slide, this is simply an overhead view looking down on the proposed project, and want you to take note in terms of some of the descriptions that Rosalind did a good job of carrying out in terms of the setbacks from the adjacent properties, as well as the safety provisions in terms of the fire lane that goes around the outside of it. Next slide, please. This is a hard project to talk about without not talking about the past, as Rosalind has indicated, and that this project, when we were asked to look at it, was at about 22 stories tall. And one of the questions that had come up about why the changes in terms of the numbers, originally this project was designed to have one tower as office and one tower as residential. Back in 2008, the office market completely dissipated, and the ownership came back and looked to reoccupy one of the buildings with the housing. And that's what's begun to make the shift within this. The thing that I think is most important for us to look at as we got involved in the project was, number one, at 22 stories tall, the length of time in terms of construction for this and disruption to Milpitas will be extensive in terms of looking at least a month of floor as you go up through the building. The other thing that I think is significant to look at is down in the lower, you can see the red area in which there is, in this proposal, there had been above grade parking, but as much as 3 full levels of basement dug down into the water table, and with tens of thousands of truck trips in terms of removing excavation from the site. All of these things kind of not only add to the impact, but add to the cost in terms of the project. Next slide, please. Next, please. We came up to Milpitas and we looked at the site, and one slide too much. Go back one, please. To 4. Thank you. We talked to the staff on numerous occasions, and we went around and visited some of the other projects that have been proposed in the area. And significant is that we witnessed a few what are called wrap projects, in which, as you can see in the middle of the image, the parking structure goes all the way up through the building, and the facade of the building wraps all the way around the bottom. And one of the things that staff had commented to us is that there had been some difficulties with parking, in the sense that people didn't want to drive all the way to the top of the building and would tend to see if they could park out on the street. The other issue that we noticed about it was that all of the amenities happened on the roof, which had a spectacular view, but none of the residents could actually see them directly. And the third thing was that we noticed an extensive, in order to try and put the 415 units onto this property, it produced very long facades to the building, and also put a lot of the units would be very crowded and close to the freeway. Next image, please. What we opted to do was basically remove the parking from subterranean, and I will see in a later slide, there is a partial basement, but there's a very specific use for that basement on the site. Our goal was to break down the mass of the building, and this brought us down from the 450 into more of the 370 unit range, which seemed more feasible. But by breaking the mass of the building, the sizes of the buildings are much closer to those that are in the context. But also it opted for us to provide ventilation, airflow to move through the building, as well as instead of all of the units having a view out to the parking lot or out to the freeway, is to put a large percentage of the units having views into the landscape spaces. This really made a huge difference. But we also looked at it by bringing it down to 8 floors. And as we went through the financials on this, the previous schemes did not have any affordable housing, and we've included the full 15% affordable housing within this project. The other thing to make note of is that we've moved the construction type from concrete. We looked at it in steel, and we've opted to build it as a hybrid, where the bulk of it will be in a much more sustainable wood construction, as opposed to all concrete or steel within that system. Next, please. This gives a pretty dramatic look in terms of the discussion about what 22 levels look like, and the depth of the parking going down deep into the water table. Water table was identified as just below 5 feet on the site. And what we've chosen to do is to try and keep the building above that level. But as opposed to many projects that have a podium that has no residential in it, we actually have 2 levels that have residential housing within the concrete podium, so that we have life on the building all the way down to the ground, whereas the previous proposals came right to the property line, but also had exposed parking structure to the neighboring properties. Next slide, please. This shows pretty dramatically what the shift is, and I think it should be pretty obvious if we look at the view on the left and we look at the view on the right. And you can see the shadow impact that was being created by the previous as opposed to the shadow impact in terms of the current proposal. Next, please. Ground floor, you've already seen a bit of that, but the building's basically broken into having 4 separate lobbies and amenity spaces for tenants on the ground floor, as well as commercial space on the front. Next, please. And this slide is an important slide for a couple of reasons. Is one, want everybody to see how we have commercial and amenity space on front and back. The building steps back away from the street, but also opens up space within and the ability to see through the building as opposed to it completely blocking the view, and also allowed us to pull residential units back a slight distance in terms of the freeway. Most significant, I think, is in terms of looking, yes, we do have one partial subterranean level. In working with the city in terms of engineering, they're looking for us to be able to slope the property down to the street. And we're looking at this excavation to be able to bring soil up so that we can fill the site and actually try and minimize how much we'd actually export and see whether we can basically balance this out as neutral. Next, please. You've seen a similar shot. This shows recreation spaces and the courtyard that goes in between. Next shot. Next slide, please. Gives you some idea in terms of the character of what that space is and the break in terms of the roof line and the introduction of the materials. Next slide, please. This shows us the floor plan, and you see how the units are broken down and the color in terms of where the 2-bedroom units are versus the other, the 1-beds and the studios within it. Next, please. These are the unit plans, and it's a little more elaborate than what Rosalind had shown you in terms of typical studio unit, a 1-bed and a 2-bed. All have balcony spaces, which were not a requirement in terms of the code, but we feel that it adds an amenity. Next, please. The next slide shows a view from what our typical unit will have throughout the entire building in terms of looking back into that activity space. Next, please. For informational purposes, this is the layout in terms of where the affordable units are. And I've used a similar approach to what we use in the city of Los Angeles, that we put the affordable units on all levels and all surfaces and all unit types, and they're not differentiated in any way from the other unit types within the building. Next, please. View to the front of the building in terms of looking at the establishment of an open space and commercial here at the ground floor. Next, please. Rosalind talked about the material palette in terms of plaster and combination of a cement fiber panel. We're looking at meeting or far exceeding the locally sourced materials. We understand that that's a concern in terms of helping the economy here. Next, please. And one of these, this slide really kind of speaks to kind of the heart of the idea with open space at the ground floor, commercial services here, and you can see that the office space is integrated into the front looking out, and whether that is tenants that will come in, or we envision very much that this may be live, work, live at home, and work downstairs in terms of shared office spaces.
Sir, this is the chair. If I can just request that we hasten the presentation a little bit.
We got a couple more to go.
Thank you.
We'll go very quickly. Next slide. Front view where the pool is. Next slide. See the amenity space. Next slide. Lobby spaces at each one of the ground floor lobbies. Next slide. amenity spaces that look back out to outdoor spaces. Next slide. And then the outdoor space immediately outside of that. Next slide. This is the view from the freeway, not at the overpass level, but at the lower level of the freeway. And we felt that it was important to give an interesting profile and composition to this side. Next slide. And with that, we're back to the original slide that we had in terms of the view from the front of the building. And we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. We appreciate ADAPT's presentation this evening. And commissioners, comments? Any comments from commissioners?
Just a quick question, Chair.
Commissioner Chong, please.
Yeah, and maybe this is directed to staff, but just, you know, so there's that one strip in front of, you know, that property, you know, for parking. Is that parking going to remain?
Are you referring to the on-street parking on Barber?
That's right, on the street parking, yeah.
Yeah, the on-street parking will still be there.
Okay.
Any other comments from commissioners?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Chua.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a couple of questions. It can either be to Ms. Thompson or the applicant. The applicant mentioned that we eliminated the visitor parking. How many parking spaces were we looking at?
As far as the ones that are eliminated, Commissioner Chua?
Yes.
So let me just take a look at the code.
And while she's looking at the code, I might reiterate that, as mentioned by the applicant, one way of looking at it is that the guest parking was not actually eliminated, but rather they are using a shared parking concept so that the parking that is used by the office workers and the commercial visitors and the commercial uses would then be used by visitors in the evening. And so there's the parking is, rather than having excess parking, it's shared.
Okay, that's a good point. I didn't catch that during the presentation. That's actually very good.
Commissioner Chua, I'd like to add that under state density bonus law, any requirement for guest parking is eliminated.
Oh, okay. Is that with the SBA? With the SBA?
That's SB 18.
SBA's exemption.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. And I did the calculation out of the 372. There should be about 55 units that will be affordable, correct?
There's 56.
56.
It rounds.
You round it up.
Yes.
55.8, and you round it up to
56.
I just want to make sure that thank you for doing that, and you're not asking for a in lieu fee option. So thank you for having that affordable unit with your development. Also, by not differentiating the affordable units with the rest of the units, because it's all spread out throughout the development.
Commissioner Chua, you are muted out. You're back on.
Did you catch that? What I'm trying to say is, by not differentiating the affordable units with the rest of the units, that's really wonderful. That's really a well thought out plan, and I commend you for that.
Thank you.
Commissioner, if I might comment on that, I would actually say that this is we could even describe this as a text example of what our affordable housing ordinance looks for. The units are the same, and I think this project in particular has done an excellent job in distributing the affordable units across the site, as was shown in one of the slides presented by the applicant. That's exactly.
I saw that. That's commendable. if I may, can we go back to slide 11, please? Slide 11 of the applicant's presentation. Oops, I think the one before this. Sorry, must be slide 10. Oh, slide 10, sorry. Here. So we have A, B, C, D, E. Well, my question to the applicant is, which one will be built first?
We're anticipating that all of these buildings will go up at a similar time frame. There may be a slight variation in terms of one being a floor taller than the next, but it is at this point not anticipated to be phased.
Oh, wow. That's going to be a lot of construction at the same time, correct?
Yes.
Good. What's your projection completion time?
Completion time on a project of this scale, I'm hard to say exactly what it's going to be because we don't know exactly what the labor market is looking like with COVID in a lot of our projects. But this project is much closer to a 2-year construction time, whereas the towers, we were probably looking at close to 4 years.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you both, Ms. Thompson and also the applicants. It's really a well-presented presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Chewett. Any other commissioner comments? Seeing none, Chair has got a number of questions for the applicant. Question to you is on the ground floor commercial space, is the food service intended in the retail space or not?
Currently, one of the things that we've debated back and forth is that we're well aware of the abundance of food service on the 2 adjacent properties, and we're not necessarily looking to take business from them. If it is desirable, we understand that we would need to take a shaft space for grease filters and things like that all the way to the top. We're open to it, but it was not part of the intention, largely because of the abundance of food service immediately adjacent.
Okay, all right. And question for planning director, based on that, are we going to make any provisions in the conditions, for or not for food service in this case?
Rosalind, you may have to. I don't think we've included a specific condition of approval related to that. I would leave it up to the applicants. I think there's a way that they can design those spaces with flexibility so that if food service wants to go in, they're able to add things like drains and that would be needed for that type of a use. And I might pose that back to the applicant to see if that's something that is contemplated in their design.
It could be, but it also brings more parking into the need. And as you all know, if you've been over there in the middle of the day, parking can become quite an issue. If we were to do that, we'd have to be looking at adding lifts in the garage and valet parking in order to be able to support additional parking.
Yeah, so Chair, if you wanted to avoid that type of a situation, I suppose with the agreement from the applicant, we could include a condition of approval to address concerns about food service on the ground floor.
Right. I think primary concern here is really existing in the parking ratio that may be impacted significantly if there's food service allowed, and also with that there's infrastructure and also the shaft penetrating through the 2 to 3 hour conditions through the floors. So if we made, yeah. And in terms of the office for the upper floors, do you have a envisioned operating hours for those spaces?
That's an interesting question. Is that world events recently have changed things dramatically in terms of how we're looking at office space. And even within our office, we have large numbers of people working from home. Specifically, one would imagine that if this is largely used by the residents in terms of the development of business or incubator business, that those hours could be extended to the evening hours. I do not foresee that it would be open 24 hours a day, however.
Sure, I think that kind of ties back into the shared parking.
Right.
That if there's visitors in the off hours. On the shared parking discussion we had just now, appreciate your judicious use of the floor space there with the shared parking. But a weekend, so if you have visitors from the residential side, and also if we also have commercial operations ongoing, are you seeing any conflict resulting from the due requirement?
If you consider the fact that we anticipate that most of the people who be using the office space already have a parking space in the building because they live there, I don't anticipate that to be an issue. But one of the things that we often do in our projects, even is we'll have a tenant that comes in and says, gee, I'd like to have more parking. On the ground floor of our buildings, we often put in a lift that allows tandem parking so that people can actually have an extra. And we do that quite frequently.
So it's with a mechanical lift that you're adding to the physical space itself.
Exactly. We do that to add tandem parking for residents that might only have one parking space. This would allow them to have two, and we can redistribute parking location.
And you will have the necessary power capacity and insurance required to accommodate that.
We do. And we're also then going to be part of the shuttle system in terms of bringing people to and from the site.
Okay. In terms of handling the, apologize, I'm kind of diving into sort of a deeper end of technical questions here. On the HVAC unit setups for your commercial and the residential site, can you kind of go through both descriptions?
What a great question. And it's in particularly good question as my daughter just moved into a new apartment building. And given the COVID situation, we'll be looking at all of the units for the housing will all be package units within the unit itself with no common return air. We'll be distributing hot and chilled water down from the roof. We'll also be doing a similar separate package that would be located for each one of the commercial components. So there will be no common return air or circulation throughout the entire building.
System much like the hotel setups?
Yes, except we do not anticipate, and we wouldn't have an exposed vent underneath of a window or something of that nature.
Sure. And so for the commercial space?
Commercial space, we do that quite often the same way in terms of having a remote unit on the roof and bring that down and take care of it right there on site. In fact, our own office building is an 8-story office building, and we're on the 2nd floor. We have a similar setup that we use every day.
Okay. And on one of your site plans reflecting where the pool deck is located, the pool deck has an immediate elevator as well as a stairwell access adjacent to the pool deck itself, and that particular elevator and stairwell is serving the commercial site.
The elevator does not open to the pool deck. Okay. And the stairs don't open where somebody from the commercial level could come up to the pool deck. They're exit out only at that level, but they are there to serve the occupancy of the office space.
Okay, so if there's ER situations, the pool deck evac can use the stairwell to press out with an alarm going off?
Precisely.
Okay, and On the, give me 1 second. On the sidings, you have on page 47 of your presentation packet, you've noted that the fiber cement architectural panels, are these sort of pre-sized panels, specific, measured out to your to each dimensions of the facade?
Yeah.
Or is cut to size on site?
They're cut to size on site in that they are a linear system, and they're a tongue and groove system with multicolor in it that has a V groove. And actually, these are sourced or manufactured in Reno. And then we look at a splicer that actually happens in between so that we avoid in terms of having warpage that happens onto it. We've worked with some cement fiber panels in the past, but we also get into issues that the edges and stuff are exposed and look a little scruffy. So we prefer to do it that way. And when we get to the corners, we have an inverted metal corner bead that allows the cement fiber to come into a nice closure, and then a reveal bead that goes down the corner of the building.
You know, as I'm looking at, you know, this design would as an accent in a sort of a call it provides the massing, you know, to the buildings. You know, my experience with the fiber cementitious fiber boards is it really follows the framing itself very closely. So any sort of warpage, you know, in the wood frame deals versus such, you know, steel frame deals, you're gonna daylight out with the sun shining on it. You're gonna see it. A lot of unintended shadow effects. I don't anticipate your framing crew will be you know, piano string this along. So just want to kind of understand how would you like to kind of make a product that looks good.
Yeah, no, understood. And one of the big differences is that we've had that experience before with metal as well as lap siding. This is actually tongue and groove, and we find that we get much straighter lines using the tongue and groove as we're able to wrap this all together. And the joints then are a scarfed or a recessed joint back in between the panels.
And this is a color impregnation all the way through, or is this a veneer?
We're looking at both the color impregnation that goes all the way through, but we're also looking at potential in terms of a surface color treatment by using kind of a polychromatic blend that we think begins to break down the scale of not having such large expanses of one siding. By us having a blending of 5 colors, we find that we get a better satisfactory result.
Okay. You know, on page 34 of your packet, you know, where's the buildings, you know, on the site plan, it indicates it's, you know, the 5-story portion. And I think on the front portion of it, you know, as it marked as 5-story, I believe those are the 8-story portion of it, right?
There's 8 stories, considering that we have 3 levels of podium. Two levels of housing are included inside of the podium construction, and then there are 5 levels of wood that sit on the top of that podium, so that our overall allows us to build this as type 3 A construction.
Sure.
And with a 2-hour exterior fire rating.
So I know construction is not under our purview under the Planning Commission, but the exterior for the entire portion of the 5-story and 8 stories are 2-hour rating.
Yes.
Or just the 8-story.
It will. Our goal is that the expression of the concrete will be invisible, and that the 2-hour will continue down.
Okay. All right. And looking at the cross sections, you know, the ground floor is showing as approximately 13'8" from finished floor to the bottom of the deck. Is that going to provide you with a sufficiently great retail experience in terms of clear height?
You've got a really sharp eye. The height normally we prefer to do with 15, but as staff has asked us to drain the site back out to the street, in order for us to maintain our height and get our 5 levels within to this, we've had to diminish that ground floor slightly in terms of making their preference for the direction we'd like to grade the site.
Okay, and so this is strictly engineering and aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
So this one, if the project comes up, I think the goal here is to really make the retail space a very good space for the user experience versus having a feeling like you're a little squashy. And in terms of you said this is a strictly apartment project, right? You're not putting a condo map on it?
Not at this time.
Okay. And will you have the on-site management office here in the building? So they'll be managing both the commercial as well as the residential side of it.
Yes.
Okay. I understand Chair is taking a lot of time asking questions. Commissioners, any questions that you may want to have, please jump in. So
I got a couple, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair, for allowing me to have a sip of water.
Good questions, though.
I can't stop you from talking, Chair. Sorry. So I like the amount of thought that's been put into kind of making it a bit more environmentally friendly, with the shadow reduction, with the gray water. I have a couple curiosity questions. So I like what you're doing with the HVAC, how there's no return air, there's no recycled return air. It's all new air that comes in, and then the air that's sucked out is going right out. Are you guys going to be outfitting them with MERV 13 filters when you put them in?
I couldn't answer that question for you today because we're probably 2 years away from doing that.
And guidelines might change at that point.
In terms of what it is, but it's definitely a concern in terms of how the air quality, particularly now that we're dealing with a pandemic.
I think a lot of places right now are common use places are being required to switch over. I can assume that all of the interior exterior lighting will all be LED. There'll be no halogen fluorescent anything like that in there.
Absolutely.
Okay, I love hearing that. I had one more, but I think it was actually answered already. So I think that's it from me. I appreciate I can tell you guys put a lot of work into kind of getting the project where you wanted it, but also considering, environmental friendliness. I think it's a good location, and I do like the, oh man, I deal with this stuff all the time, but I forgot the name. The wood you guys are using, the tongue and groove. I do like, I personally like the tongue and groove look. So, all right. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair, for the response. We appreciate it. And you're the applicant. You're getting me back here. So got a few more questions for you. If you're not tired of me at this moment, so on the operation side for the retails, how do they take deliveries and do the garbage runs to the refuse room? It's always the devil's in the detail, and there's no really sort of besides the front door. There's really no back ways out.
What we've done is we've worked with both the fire department and the sanitation group in terms of where refuge is coming down to the building, and with the fire department in terms of we've actually provided wider than the 26 feet, and we have space on the dump days in terms of being able to have alcoves for where the trash goes out. So delivery and stuff we're anticipating to be on the row immediately behind the commercial, and the trash being a scheduled setup.
So
in terms of
I'm kind of talking about the daily operation. So if I'm a retail shop and and at the end of the day, I've got a couple bags of garbage I need to, sort of middle of the day, need to take out to the back. So, I'm looking at your parking garage plans. Say, for example, between space 5 and 6, there is a space there, and I assume that you're going to have a common retail corridor there. Is there going to be an access way allowing you to access via the backside versus doing at the front of the house?
Absolutely, without question.
Okay, all right. And on your type 3, the wood floors for the apartments, are you going to be floating any lightweight concrete on it for noise reduction?
That is something that we do a lot of, and it's definitely something that is in consideration. I'm going to have to deal with that in terms of the engineer, in terms of the mass of the building, but it is a very common thing that we often do. I can't say 100% that we will, but when we don't put the Incasonic mat and the concrete fill on it, we go through another whole series of iterations in terms of an Incasonic mat underneath of the wood flooring and genie clips in terms of the chipboard surfaces below, in terms of sound isolation.
Well, Incasonic assembly is a wonderful for the floor noise attenuation process. I highly encourage your consideration for that. Your 600 address number in the front, lit or not lit, or kind of in the bold colors. Here's the reason for my asking here, if you don't mind me just elaborate a little bit. Folks looking for a specific location the first time or second time, looking for landmarks, and you're looking for something specific, and like to have some sort of a landmark denotation to it. So highly suggest and recommend consideration for something that has some sort of visual impact.
Okay, we generally run into communities that do not want any front illuminated signs, so we always float LED around the edges of it, but we can most certainly look at a color with an outside light that would put light on that surface, but never a plastic lens illuminated from behind.
Absolutely. And on solar panels, you folks are not using any solar panels on this building, right?
At this point, we don't anticipate it. Sometimes we've used solar panels in terms of the pool heating, but it's all part of the energy study in terms of looking at what the overall business plan is and our payback in terms of them. We're not avert to them, but it all comes back through in terms of processing. It's all larger analysis.
Thank you. Thank you very much for responding to a myriad of divergent questions.
It's okay.
And commissioners, any other questions? Okay, this is a public. I'm sorry, Commissioner Bilong, please.
So just real quick, on the commercial spaces, it sounded like that the parking structure for the building, it's assigned parking for the residents?
Yes.
So people that are visiting to the commercial spaces, where are they to park? Or just on the street, or?
No. If they're coming in, all of the parking immediately behind the commercial at the ground floor, that's all allocated for the commercial spaces.
Okay, and then the staff that works in the building, they have dedicated parking as well?
Exactly, same area, all at the ground floor.
So is that closed off to visitors, let's say after hours?
At this point, we're looking to use that, as we were talking about in terms of the shared parking, is that a visitor that might be coming to visit you in an apartment can park in that area and then proceed to one of the lobbies. The closed parking, where a gate would come down, would segregate the private parking for residents above.
Perfect. That's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Bilong. And anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. and appreciate your patient responses. And this has been the public hearing items. And recording secretaries, do we have any public comments for the project at this point?
Yes, Chair, we received one public comment from Miss Barbara Navarro, 915 North Hillview Drive. Her comment is, Planning Commission, I'm concerned about the parking. Even a one-bedroom resident will most likely be 2 cars. I understand that the code is being met by the number of parking spaces. Can you review where these spaces are on one of the slides? Also, can you tell me where guest and extra resident cars will be parked? Although we would like to think transit is the way to go with the pandemic, I'm sure that most folks who need to go to work will drive. Also, more folks working from home, cars will be parked by the housing. Can you tell me what schools will be impacted by this housing? It would be nice to know what stores will be local for the residents to use. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Medina. And if I can ask the applicant to respond to that.
I'm going to turn that back over to my colleague Robert, since he's the planning wizard. We have a lot of different ways in which we handle parking, and as I mentioned, is we also build in additional parking. But Robert might want to comment in terms of the overall.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the overall, as we've noted, the project meets all of the code required parking, and hopefully COVID is temporary and people go back to transit. That's really where we want people to utilize. But I think what's really important is that the author makes a strong note, and that is that if the office space is going to be utilized by people that reside within the building, then we actually have extra parking space. We won't have a conventional commercial office space wherein we'll have employees traveling to the building. And so it's actually kind of a win-win in that regard. And then again, as just to reiterate, the author to ask where is the residential parking located, or excuse me, the visitor parking. Well, that residential visitor parking is located on the first floor of the office of the retail space or commercial space. And so that's all shared. And when the office is presumably using it during the day, it would be vacant by resident visitors, and in the evening be utilized by resident visitors. And that's really what the strategy is a mixed use parking strategy, which was typical when you have a multitude of uses that have operating hours that kind of that operate opposite one another.
Thank you. And speaking of parking, I'm looking at your parking plans right now, and your aisle width is approximately 24 feet. End to end of stalls. Is that sufficient to handle full-size vehicles in terms of doing the straight in and out?
Yeah, that's generally the standard that we see in all municipalities is a 24 foot width aisle.
Okay, since the aisle depth is about 18 feet, it's a slightly pinched number for a full-size vehicle. So, you know, I just want to make sure that we don't run into too many fender benders in here.
Yeah, no, it's a good comment. It's a great comment.
Okay, thank you. And so, Ms. Medina, there's no other public comments?
No other public comment, Chair.
Thank you very much. So, do I have a motion?
Chair, may I add a little more comment to the,
please,
in response to the question from public. So they mentioned schools, and I know that early on in our discussions with the applicant, we talked about their discussions with the school district. I don't know if there is anything else that they want to elaborate on that. And then also with regard to shopping, one just needs to check the map of this area. This development happens to be located between 2 very large and very active shopping centers, and there will be direct pedestrian connections and vehicle connections to both shopping centers. And there's also shopping to the north in the McCarthy Shopping Center. So thankfully, there's no shortage of shopping in this area.
Thank you, Director Thomas. And this has been a public hearing item, and so we have no further public comments. Do I have a motion to close the public comment?
Motion to close the public comment?
Second.
Second, okay. And so, Mr. City Attorney, would you like me to do a name call? Excuse me, call for each commissioners on the.
Yeah, sure. We can do it.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right. So, Vice Chair Elkhorn.
Aye.
Commissioner Chua.
Aye.
Commissioner Chong. Commissioner Chong.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Belong.
Aye.
Commissioner Albana.
Aye.
Chair is aye as well. So 6 ayes. Passed. Public hearing is closed. And commissioners' comments and motions.
Chair, just a question. I noticed that Deputy Chief Zamora is also on the line. Was wondering if he had any comments since we have him on.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Planning Commission. I did miss the twin-story hotel project because I was looking forward to that, but that was my comment. And then we got this one, so we were also looking forward to that. We did do a conceptual review of the project, and so we're prepared to receive the construction documents when they're ready to be delivered and submitted. And then we'll go through tooth and nail in terms of the fire code and building code requirements and ensure that all the levels of fire protections are in place. And we're looking forward to a very successful project. So that's pretty much what I have for tonight, unless you have any further questions.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. And any other comments from commissioners?
Chair Tao, I'd also like to mention, in addition to our Deputy Fire Chief, our city transportation engineer is also available if you have any questions related to access, ingress, egress from the site.
If the planner is available, I would like to ask a quick question. In terms of the peak hours of traffic generation, when do we anticipate that the peak hours?
Since this is Steve Chan, city's transportation manager.
Welcome.
Since this project is mainly residential, we would be expecting the typical morning AM peak and outbound and inbound for the PM peak.
Okay, and in terms of the traffic trip generations, is it consistent with the general plan and zoning standards that which is being laid out?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much. Okay, and as a chair, I'm really happy to see a project that is more scaled and has a little bit more tectonic movement in terms of its layout and its quarter turn or 60-degree turn in terms of the building layout in the center of the project. And I think this is a far superior imaginative concept that's being presented before us this evening. And would truly think this is a much better looking product, and we commend both the staff and also the applicant for the diligent work and all throughout this process. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, do I have a motion from commissioners? Commissioners, do I have a motion?
Well, since everyone wants to be all quiet, I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
My pleasure. I would like to make a motion to approve. Hold on, there's a lot here. Okay, I would like to make a motion to approve P-SD19-0006, also P-TR20-008, also P-UP20-006, and like I said, there's a lot here. P-EA 20-006. A site development permit, conditional use permit, tree removal permit, and a certification of addendum for the environmental impact report for the Landmark Tower mixed-use development project to develop a mixed-use podium-style building with 4 5-story residential towers and 1 single-story amenity building built over a 4-story podium on the 3-acre site located at 600 Barber Lane.
Mr. Vice Chair, if you could just clarify that this is going to be the adoption of 2 resolutions, resolution number 20-013, and then also resolution number 20-014.
Yes. Sorry, there's a lot going on here. Yes, would like to adopt adding to my motion, would like to adopt the resolution 20-013 and adopt resolution 20-014.
And I'll second that motion.
Is that Commissioner Belong? That's seconding?
Yes.
Okay.
Martin, City Attorney, was that is that all packed in enough? Is that enough info, or do you need more clarification?
I think I would suggest if the screen here, it has the resolution with the approvals, and then the resolution number 20-14 with the approvals. So I would recommend that you restate the motion covering all of the entitlements and as well as the approval of the addendum. So you could restate it and read from the screen. I think that would cover it.
All righty.
Chair, I can do that. I have a comment before he does that. Chair, did you also want him to, so there was also a request from you to also include as a condition of approval for, where you wanted to take some of the business areas to, include food as well?
Yes, I think let me refer that back to Planning Director Thomas. So in terms of the exact wording, how would that be phrased in terms for the food and the parking sort of meshing?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, before you go to Planning Director.
Sure.
Then would you entertain that to, instead of part of the condition, to make that a recommendation so it's more flexible? Because this is going to go on for like 2 to 4 years, and we don't know what's going to happen in those time period. I would suggest that make it as a recommendation, but not as a condition.
Commissioner Chuat, I think, thank you for the comment. And I think, if there's food use there, that the ratio is going to be altered in some way, shape, or form. So I think, adding the lift aspect of parking, that would accommodate it. I think I will probably recommend the wording to be, to be recommended, by the staff, for the appropriate parking ratio. Would that be appropriate?
Yes.
Planning Director?
Chair, if I may, since this is all hypothetical, at present there are no restaurant or food services proposed, but if I might suggest some language, I quickly jotted something down while we were chatting, something to the effect, restaurant food service uses proposed in the commercial areas shall be reviewed and approved by the Planning Director or his designee. That way, if they do come back with a food service, if it's a smaller one, it might be appropriate there, and it would be incumbent upon them to show us how the parking would work. But if nothing is, if restaurant food services aren't included, then there isn't a requirement for them to come back. And that does give us some oversight. And if it's a larger area and it would impact parking, then I can refer that to the Planning Commission.
I think that'd be appropriate. So, Vice Chair, in your motion, would you be able to adapt this particular point in your motion?
I will do my best to remember all of that. that was a lot. I understand. I actually do think that's appropriate. I want them because Commissioner Evelyn Chua made a really good point that in 2 years, with COVID sweeping through right now, and this building's going to be around for a long time. I think giving them a little bit of flexibility, but having the city have some oversight over the flexibility is a really good option there. Although I do have to say that these developers have kind of thought of everything right now. So I do have faith in them, but a little bit of oversight is always a good thing for everyone. So I do agree with that. So if we could put this...
Chair and Vice Chair, and maybe just if you don't mind me making a comment, for the recommendation for the city attorney, from the city attorney. So before you make your motion, Mr. Vice Chair, my suggestion would be, and if it's okay with the city attorney, if he words it such that it's the adoption resolution that's stated that you had on the screen earlier, as well as maybe just a comment from, just to make it easier for Vice Chair, as also stated by Planning Director. That'd be something appropriate for the Vice Chair.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to do, because
okay.
I know I know for a fact I would butcher the wording.
I might suggest that when you're done reading the words that are on the screen, you can just say, with the added condition regarding restaurant and food services as stated by the Planning Director, and then we can add that language into the final resolution before it's signed.
That way it's all clear on the minutes and the recording too. I like that. I can do that. If we could have IT throw that recommendation screen back up, that way I don't butcher it a second time.
No, not butcher, it's challenged.
Challenge. I don't know what's worse. Okay. So here we go. I am going to make a motion to adopt resolution number 20013, approving the site development permit P-SD 19-0006, tree removal permit P-TR20-0008, conditional use permit P-UP20-006, and environmental assessment P-EA20-006, subject to the intact conditions of approval. And also adopt resolution number 20-014, approving an addendum certified final environmental impact report for the Landmark Towers project, adoption of the environmental findings pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, adoption of the statement of overriding considerations and the mitigation monitoring report program, and approval project with the added condition of future food service activities be directed to the planning director. Did I get that right? That was a mouthful. I see a nod from the attorney, so I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
Okay, good. So do I have a second?
I'll second it again.
Okay.
Perfect.
Second from Commissioner Bilong. So, and go ahead, do a call individually. So, Commissioner Elkhorn. I mean, Vice Chair Elkhorn. No emotion there.
Thank you. Aye.
Commissioner Chua.
Aye.
Commissioner Chong.
Aye.
Commissioner Belong.
Aye.
Commissioner Albana.
Aye.
Chair, aye as well. And gentlemen, and congratulations on the and we look forward to have this project in the standing living color in the not too distant future.
Thank you so much.
Well, we appreciate it. May I suggest to the commissioners if we can take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back for the second item. Will that be agreeable to the commission?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate the ADAPT and the entire Simpali team. We appreciate your your time this evening. And so it's 8:49 right now. So can we go ahead and just take a 5-minute break and return to the Zoom session at 8:55? Would that be appropriate?
Yes, sounds good.
Okay, great. Thank you, and we'll see everyone again in 5+ minutes.
Oh. Oh. Chair Tao, I think you're muted.
Okay, I'm back. Thank you, Director Thomas. Appreciate it. And thank you, commissioners. And on to the second public hearing item this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're also very pleased to bring to you the master sign program for the Fields, also known as the district, and other names. This, of course, is part of the metro area, and it's located at the intersection of Great Mall Parkway and McCandless. And development is ongoing in this project. This is the master sign program. It requires a site development permit for the project. And we have our other senior planner, Michael Fasati, here with us tonight to present the staff report. And I believe there are also representatives from Lion Living, the developer and applicant here to also help answer any questions. So I'll turn the time over to Michael for the staff report.
Thank you, Director Thomas, and good evening, Commissioners. I am Michael Fasati. I am a senior planner here with the City of Milpitas. And the item in front of you this evening is an application for a site development permit for a master sign program for the Fields. Next slide, please. A master sign program application is required for any new retail, office, or industrial complex. The Fields is a 4-lot mixed-use development that includes over 1,100 residential units, 90,000 square feet of retail, and a new hotel. As such, if any new retail vendor wanted to install signage within this development, a master sign program would need to be in place. A master sign program ensures coordination of the design of new retail signs with the aesthetic of the development, as well as provides a consistent and streamlined review, approval, and administration process for both the new business tenant and the city. For simplicity's sake, the attached images demonstrate typical signs within a master sign program. Master sign programs establish sign standards for retail tenant wall identification signs, either above or below a canopy, retail tenant projecting signs, and retail tenant blade signs, among others. Master sign programs typically do not establish sign standards for informational signs. Those types of signs are typically exempt. And an informational sign is a sign that provides courtesy information. These are signs that either provide the name of the development or provides directions to the public without advertising a business product, or signs that just direct pedestrians and motorists on where to go once they're on the property. Next slide, please. This is an aerial image of the field site. The field site is this mixed-use development that's approximately 15.5 acres in size. The site is located at the intersection of Great Mall Parkway and McCandless Drive. Next slide, please. This is a zoning map of the property. The project site's zoning designation is very high density mixed use and identified with the black outline and the purple. The project site is surrounded by general commercial to the north. Many of us know that as the Great Mall. More very high density mixed use to the east, which just for your sake, it's the Summerhill development, and high density residential to the south, and Penitentia Creek to the west. Next slide, please. The master sign program will provide retail sign standards for all 4 developments within the Fields development. This is the site plan showing how all 4 developments will eventually sit on the site. Lion Living refers to the mixed-use development of the Fields as Turing, Graham, Elion, and Gideon. Those are the 4 buildings that Lion refers to them as. The city refers to the Fields as districts lots 1, 2, 3, and 4. The following 4 slides will address the type of signage and where such signage will be allowed on each mixed-use development within the Fields. Next slide, please. Wall identification signs below canopies are going to be allowed in the sign program. The images above demonstrate the potential placement of a wall sign as well as an image of a wall sign under a canopy in real life. Please note the image of the glass house is simply an example. I don't believe leases for new businesses have been accepted by Lion to date, so they don't have any current retail vendors on the project yet. Next slide, please. Wall identification signs above canopies are also permitted within the sign program. The images above demonstrate the potential placement, a graphical image of a wall sign over a canopy, and a real wall sign above a canopy. Next slide, please. Projecting signs will be allowed as demonstrated within the images below. The image on the right is an example of a projecting sign. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you. Blade signs are similar to projecting signs, except they are more pedestrian scale. They can either be attached to the bottom of the canopy or to the wall as demonstrated above. Each city is different when they define blade signs and projecting signs. But in the city of Milpitas, a blade sign is a projecting sign that's more pedestrian friendly. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
I think they were obviously having technical difficulties, so it was getting stuck.
Thank you for your patience, Planning Commission and staff, residents.
This is the part where you sing, Michael. So.
Yeah. I've been fighting my cat to stay off my laptop. Maybe I should bring him back.
Chair, I'm sorry about
materials that you can provide the commission.
Hello, Chair. I'm sorry about that. I'm sharing the screen now.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Great. You know, I have 6 more slides to go, so I'll wrap it up quick. For the Turing development, also known as District Lot 1, retail tenants would be able to occupy the areas designated by the red hatches across on the site plan. Those tenants would be allowed wall signs either above or below the canopy. Maximum heights range from 1 foot 8 inches to 3 feet in height for major tenants. The site would also be allowed to, would be able to accommodate up to 3 projecting signs, as well as small blade signs to be located adjacent to the retail store openings. Next slide, please. Great. Retail tenants for the Graham will be able to occupy the areas designated within the red hatched area. Maximum heights range, or maximum heights for the wall signs on that development are capped at 1 foot 8 inches in height, mainly due to the narrower street setbacks from McCandless Drive as compared to the retail spaces adjacent to Great Mall Parkway. The site would also be able to accommodate 1 projecting sign, as well as small blade signs, also in front of retailers adjacent to the street. Next slide, please. Elion, District Lot 3 will be proposing their retail tenants for the Elion will be proposing within their site development permit amendment to place retail at these sites that are designated in the red. Maximum heights range for wall signs above and below canopies are also capped at 1 foot 8 inches in height. The site would be able to accommodate up to 3 projecting signs as well as small blade signs in front of retailers. Next slide, please. Retail tenants of the Gideon will be located here. Maximum heights also range, or maximum heights for the wall signs above and below canopies will also be kept at 1 foot 8 inches in height. They're not proposing any projecting signs on that site, only wall signs and smaller blade signs. Next slide, please. Along with informational signs, temporary signs that we're all accustomed to, such as balloon signs, banner signs, grand opening signs, and temporary use signs, will be governed under the existing zoning code and not via the master sign program. As such, those types of signs will require a separate permit. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. Staff received a comment regarding illumination concerns and believe this is not an issue to residents that live within the development. The sign program has no blinking, flashing, reflective, rotating, or moving signs, as those types of signs are strictly prohibited within the city. In an effort to provide examples to the Planning Commission of illuminated signs and their potential effect on residential properties, staff took some pictures of similar illuminated signs at existing mixed-use developments in the South Bay. All the signs we found were designed as not to impact residential units because residential units were either directly above the signage or across the street and significantly set back from the retail use. If Planning Commission has concerns about illumination, an amendment in the form of a condition can be added to the resolution regarding illuminated signs facing residential units. Next slide, please. Findings have been made in the affirmative for the project as demonstrated in the staff report. Next slide, please. Staff has also determined that the project has been found to be consistent with the approved addendum to the TASP EIR, which was adopted in November 17, 2015 by the City of Milpitas, pursuant to Public Resource Code Section 21166 and CEQA Section 15168. Staff has also found the project be exempt from CEQA per Section 15182 and 15183 of the CEQA guidelines. Next slide, please. The project was noticed with postcards as well as placed within the Milpitas Post and City website. As of now, the city has not received any comments. I recognize the secretary may have received comments during this presentation. Next slide. With that being said, staff recommends opening and closing the public hearing, considering the consistency with the TAS EIR addendum and added exemptions in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, and adopting resolution number 20-012, approving site development permit number SD 20-0006, subject to the attached conditions of approval. This concludes staff's summary of the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions, as well as my understanding that Thomas Rubio and I believe Stephen Bull with Lion Living are also here to answer any specific questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fasadi. Appreciate your fine presentation. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Anybody? Chair has one question for Mr. Fasadi, and in terms of the signage for the illuminated signs, is there a current city code there that governs how many maximum lumens or maximum brightness that may entail the lightest sign category?
There's not a city standard for wall signs and maximum illumination. I scoured the code, and the only time we limit illumination is with off-site large advertisement signage. You know, the signs you see out the freeway. Correct.
So, would it be appropriate that we, would know that so there's no light pollution, spilled onto the nearby residential units? So this way, it kind of provides staff some ability to govern if in case the future signs of this project here have evolved.
If you wish, I thought about this. I crafted a condition. I haven't brought it back to the applicant yet, but I'd be more than willing to read it to the Planning Commission.
Hey, but before you read that, can I make a comment? Is that okay, Chair?
Yes, Vice Chair, please.
Okay. I see that the illumination behind the signs wasn't taken out of the question already. You kind of brought it to us, but you have a condition drafted. So it's kind of a little bit hard to tell where staff is coming from with whether staff kind of thinks that it should be, we should make a condition against it or not. Personally, if you go to downtown San Jose, there's tons of apartments that are near illuminated signs. And, you know, I have a friend who has an apartment who lives right across the street. I think it's from a Starbucks, and they have an illuminated sign out like right in front of their unit. It's not distracting at all. I personally don't see that as an issue at all. But the fact that there's a condition drafted, was that just, you know, just to be ready, just in case we did want to make a condition against it? Or do you guys feel like there might be an issue, like maybe the units across the street? I'm not worried about the units on top of it. Those will not be in the view of the sign whatsoever. But are you guys worried that the units that are adjacent to it might be affected by this?
No, Vice Chair. The conditions we currently have in the resolution, or the conditions staff stands by, it was simply to be just in case.
Okay.
There was.
I appreciate that, actually. Okay, that's what I thought. Because, you know, in my entire experience, I've never been in a building or apartment and been like, that Pete's Coffee sign is too loud or too bright. You know, I've never thought that. And so personally, I don't think that's an issue. And a side note, you're looking good with the shaved, and your background did trick me for a second.
All right. Well, you know, glad you like it.
Chair, that was it. If he wants to read what his condition was, that would be okay.
I had a quick question too. Based on the illuminations, is there an ability to put maybe a condition in there on like a time frame on when those can be illuminated, or if they can be shut off at a certain time? You know.
You know, that's what's great about the Planning Commission. If you and your constituents believe that would be appropriate, staff, because it kind of works at your call. So I would ask that we give the applicant a chance to speak, as they'll be managing for those properties. Maybe not forever though, so that may be the issue, but that condition can be brought.
Commissioner Belong, actually, I do like that idea of like a 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. shut off time. I do like that idea.
You know, and Vice Chair, if I and Commissioner Belong, just jumping on the discussion, you know, there's gradients in terms of brightness. So, you know, that I think that the retailers would like to have the ability to have continuous presence. So if we have the ability to go to 50% or 30%, so there's still, you know, presence there without it being, you know, super bright.
I would suggest that we table this until after the applicant has the time to speak, and he can provide some input on that as well.
Absolutely. So at this time, without any other commissioner comments, I'd like to invite Lion Living representative for the presentation.
Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair. Just wanted to say thank you guys for making time for us this evening. And thanks again to staff for your time in reviewing and preparing support. We appreciate it very much. In response to the lighting question, I mean, I've worked in several mixed-use developments in Southern California, and we always feel it's appropriate to install timers for signage. The time frame of that, open to discussion. I do feel that 1 a.m. might even be a little bit late for a mixed-use development where we're not planning on having a super active nightlife past midnight, let's say. So I might even be open to saying 11 p.m. would be more than reasonable or something like that.
Okay, Mr. Rubio, in terms of you know, your lighting standards, are you able to gradient, you know, the amount of light, or, you know, by the dimmer, by some sort of dimmer aspect of it?
I've not installed any dimmable signs in the past. I know that timers are very common and easy to install. You can have light sensors and then timers as well for shut off late night. I think with modern LED signage, the application of dimmers is readily available. It's if the Planning Commission chose to enforce that, I think that's something we could pass on to tenants and enforce as well.
Thank you, Mr. Rubio. Appreciate it. Commissioners, any comments to Mr. Rubio?
I really like the timer idea. I would very much like to get Commissioner Belong's input on this as well, but I think a midnight cutoff time would be really appropriate. I know you said 11 p.m. would be fine, but kind of planning for the future. Maybe there's something. Maybe there's a restaurant that's open till midnight there, or something like that in the future, or just something. Kind of just future proofing it a little bit. I think I am interested to hear Commissioner Belong's input on that as well, though.
Yeah, 11 midnight. I guess it would be at the privy of the rest of the commission, but just having something illuminated all the way through 4 and 5 a.m. it just doesn't seem like it would be necessary. So that was kind of why I brought that up. But yeah, I believe midnight is great too. Are the commercial properties set up to have these restaurants, or I wasn't on the commission when these projects were approved, so I don't know what kind of commercial properties are at the base level there, or what they're subject to.
We are planning on some restaurant tenants.
Mm-hmm. So they're most likely there's going to be bars and nightlife activity and things like that. So I would assume midnight would be great. Bars depends. Some of them stay open till 2 a.m. So I don't know what kind of establishments are going to be there, but I would assume midnight sounds great.
So Chair has a question for Mr. Rubio, and in regards to the signage on the inside face or immediate outside face of the storefront doors or windows, what is your particular sign program that which allows or disallows the tenants adhering additional information to the glass faces?
We actually have a page. Thank you for that question. There's a sheet in our criteria here that specifies the size, type, and content of vinyl graphics in windows. So we do have a clause in there that allows landlord full and absolute discretion of that. So if we have a tenant that it decides they'd like to place something that's not within our design criteria or what we would like to see in our tenant spaces, we have the ability to have them remove that.
And I assume that the line or the future owners will have on-site management office, so that there's a constant monitoring of the tenants better efforts.
Correct.
Okay. One of the things we always notice is with the national credit tenants, there's the program that's rolled out is pretty well designed, and that there's a sort of thought process to it, and some of the independent tenants tend to be kind of a mishmash of all sorts and all sizes, and we're just trying to be cognizant of what may happen, and not necessarily what is going to happen, but we just want to be this is the new metro areas, we want to be looking better than most.
Absolutely. We feel that this sign program for retail signage builds in a good, a broad but also strict parameters for retail signage, and allowing them only canopy signage and blade signage, and then seriously limiting their vinyl graphic opportunity as well.
And Mr. Rubio, I had a discussion with Director Thomas, about sort of the signage itself. So many times in these new developments, the signage itself, because of the I call it very sort of restrictive ways of placing them, you almost kind of get a very linear feel to it. We highly encourage some allowance within the bandwidth that's provided, allow for some so that the spectators or the walk by folks, their eyeballs are not staying at one level, so there's a little bit more in and out and a little bit of the up and down. So that we can create some visual interest to allow for the retail district here to be profitable for the merchants, and also lively for the for the city at large.
Understood.
Thank you. Any other comments for the applicant?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Chua.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Rubio, if you're going to have a restaurant with bars, don't they usually close at 2 a.m.?
That's usual operating for a bar. I understand that's a special use permit for a bar.
Yeah, I do agree with Commissioner Belong and Vice Chair Alcorn about having a designated time. My only concern is to make it standard, meaning it's easy to enforce if it's standard. And logic says if the bar or the restaurant has bars and they're closed at 2, wouldn't that make sense to make it at 2? Because I don't want it to see like this restaurant has midnight, the other one has it's 2 o'clock. It's very hard to enforce. So it has to be standard. So
if I could make a suggestion, maybe our hours of operation for signage can be limited to hours of operation for the business, which makes it a little more flexible, but still builds in a little bit more, I guess, sensitivity to the environment of the residential community as well.
Would that be hard to enforce? Because, one restaurant could close at midnight or 11 o'clock, and then the other one at 2 a.m. I'm just looking up a streamlined way of making the suggestions of my fellow commissioners happen, and as well not make it harder for the business too.
I understand.
And the people that is enforcing that, which is our Milpitas Police Department or code enforcers. Or do you see what I'm saying? There's gotta be a program.
Commissioner Chua?
Yes.
I agree with your consistency statement. I think it would be tacky for one restaurant to have all the lights off and the restaurant next to it to be fully illuminated.
Yeah.
And so are we expecting any just standalone bars here? Or are they only going to be bars inside of restaurants?
I think we'd like to see a standalone bar, but
okay,
see how that works post-COVID.
Yeah, understood. So I'll kind of poll the rest of the commissioners here. How would we feel about I think to me, consistency is more important here. And so how would we feel about a consistent 2 a.m. shutoff for all illumination, except for, of course, street lights and such? That's not what I'm talking about signs. Because like I said, I think it would be terribly tacky for a building, to be right here with completely shut off. And then the one right next to it is completely illuminated. I mean, probably great for marketing, like, hey, we're open late and we have a reminder every night. But I think visually it'd be a little tacky. So I think a consistent 2 a.m. would be good. But let me pull the rest of the commissioners here. Is that okay, or are you saying 3 a.m.? Okay. I'm like, no, we don't need to push it.
If I can stay up till 3 a.m., please do let me know. So it's okay.
If you ever are, call me. I'm usually up.
Well, thank you for your invite. Commissioner Belong, your thoughts?
I think it's perfect. I mean, consistency is key. So, I mean, as long as we all agree, I'm good with it.
Commissioner Albana, your thought?
Knowing since my kids are and my niece nephews are on the millennial age, the flexibility of some restaurants sometimes that are open until 3-4 o'clock. So the consistency should be there, and yet it'll be flexible enough, like when a few of those restaurants close at 3, maybe. Yeah.
Commissioner Chuan?
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. Consistency. I mean, if restaurants can close at 2, then then the lighting illumination should close, should shut off at that same time. If there's a restaurant, as Commissioner Albana stated, that maybe if there's something open at 3 or 4, I think that probably has to come, through, has to have some kind of special permit in the first place there, and then that's something that can be decided later, but it needs to be consistent across. So
allow me to throw that back to City Attorney and Planning Director. Are there provisions, in the books right now, providing 3 or 4 a.m. closing for bars?
I am not aware of such provisions. I will just point out that any regulations that the commission wants to consider, we should just be mindful that signs are subject to First Amendment protections. It looks like this time that you guys are discussing it doesn't really implicate that, but I think to the extent that the regulation is standard and it's neutral, objective, which it sounds like it is, I think those are appropriate considerations. But I'm not aware of such provisions. I'm not sure if Planning Director has any insight on that.
Oh, I know with some businesses in the city, we do impose operating hours. Michael may, our senior planner, Michael Fasadi, may have that off the top of his head better than I do. I don't know if that would necessarily apply to signs. I think that if we're looking at dimming the signs, that that would be something that we could do with the time limit.
Yeah, Director Thomas is correct. For retail and offices in MXD zoning districts, they're not supposed to stay open until past 10 p.m. It sounds like there's some concerns about restaurants and bars, which may be a primary component of this development. But we're open to any suggestions on, it sounds like the applicants will install the timer. I'm just looking for direction from the Planning Commission on when you would feel comfortable that timer would be set till.
I have a comment. Commissioner Chuan brought up I think he said a consistent 2 a.m. across the board. But if there was a restaurant, I'm not slamming this restaurant by any means, but I don't see we'll just say 24-hour breakfast diner. I don't see one of those in this type of complex. I don't think it would fit. And so I would say, is there a way to do a consistent 2 a.m. but maybe have a special application form if you want to, past that? I don't think we would ever need it, but we have the avenue just in case, because no one can see the future. Is that possible?
Vice Chair, I would probably suggest that we do a standard 2 a.m. Shutdown, and if there's a application that or a requirement that comes in past 2 a.m., we'll probably set it as a staff level review and a review approval or disapproval.
I like it. I got it. I like that.
So we're not subject to the applicant and the operators to rather extend the time frame, for.
Yeah. Essentially, that's what I was talking about, is having an avenue just in case there was a business there that did need it longer. Just making sure there was an avenue to where we're not constricting their business. But like I previously stated, I don't see anything in this particular complex being open past 2 o'clock. Bars actually in California have to be closed at 2 o'clock. And so I'm guessing restaurants with bars in it are subject to the same rules there. And so most restaurants, I think the only thing that would be open past 2 would be a 24-hour breakfast diner, something like that.
Okay. Any other comments, staff, commissioners, and applicant? Okay. So this has been a public hearing, and like to understand if there's any public comments from the commission secretary, please.
Hi, Chair. We have received no public comment for this item.
Okay, thank you very much. And do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I will make a motion to
oh, sorry. Sorry.
go for it. Go for it.
Close the public hearing.
And I'll second that.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and do a roll call. Vice Chair?
Aye.
Commissioner Chua?
Aye.
Commissioner Chong?
Aye.
Thank you. And Commissioner Belong?
Aye.
Commissioner Albana?
Aye.
And the chair's aye as well. Okay, so public hearing is closed. So commissioners, discussions and directions, motions. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, and thank you after the urging, appreciate it. And so Commissioner Trump, please.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to consider the exemption in accordance with CEQA and adopt resolution number 20-012, approving site development permit number SD 20-0006, subject to the attached conditions of approval.
Second.
And if I may circle back, we also discussed the shut off time at 2 a.m.
Correct.
So I think we should also add that into the into the conditions.
I would like to add that condition, basically saying all master sign plan illumination must be shut off by 2 a.m. every night, Monday through Friday, or Sunday through Saturday.
Okay, and is that okay with the motion maker?
As the motion maker, I'd like to get a recommendation from the planning director on the exact language.
Thank you. Through the chair. So the condition of approval could read that, I can't read my own writing here, to that signage shall have, let's see, signage shall be subject to a 2 a.m. time limitation for shut off, something to that effect. My question is, did you want to include a provision for staff review of any exceptions, or do you want to just have a hard 2 a.m.?
I will say with the provision of staff exemptions, so we have the avenue there.
Okay, that does give us a little bit of flexibility in case there is a situation, and we can work directly.
Exactly.
Yeah, the individual on their signs.
And City Attorney, is the language clear enough for your liking?
That sounds clear. I think because it was amended, we would have to have another second on that.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Who's the second?
I'll hand it over. I'll hand it off to Commissioner Belong.
Okay, Commissioner Belong's the second, and the motion maker is Commissioner Chuan, correct?
If Commissioner Chuan wants to just restate the motion again, and then just to have it clear.
Yes. So can we please put the slide that we had on there again, please? Thank you. So I'd like to make a motion to consider the exemption in accordance with CEQA and adopt resolution number 20-012, approving site development permit number SD 20-0006, subject to the attached conditions of approval, with additional condition that signage be turned off at 2 a.m. As stated by planning director, and also with the if time needs to go beyond 2 a.m. to go through planning staff for additional review. Is that and that's my motion. Is that any issues with that, city attorney?
No, if someone wants to make a second, that's fine.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, it is motion made by Commissioner Chuan and seconded by Commissioner Bilong. So I'll go down the line and for a vote. So Vice Chair.
Aye.
And Commissioner Chua.
Aye.
Commissioner Chuan.
Aye.
Commissioner Bilong.
Aye.
Commissioner Albana.
Aye.
Chair Tao is an aye as well. So we have a six eye on the item. And congratulations to the applicant. We thank you for being with us this evening.
Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, and moving on the agenda, new business, we have no items this evening. So the standard language, of which I'm going to be reading off, is any person.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I did want to bring up under new business and ask. I believe we're going to agendize for the next meeting a discussion with the Planning Commission about a review of the Planning Commission bylaws. And we don't need to have discussion about it tonight, but I just wanted to bring that up. And I don't know, with Martin, do we need to have a vote on that to put it on the agenda for the next meeting? I can't remember what we decided.
No, we shouldn't take a vote because it's not on the agenda for tonight. The chair, if there's sort of a direction or concurrence without taking a vote, that's
absolutely
fine. Yeah.
So the chair would like to have the staff bring in front of the Planning Commission on the next Planning Commission meeting on items pertaining to the subcommittee and also review of the bylaws for the Planning Commission.
Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair.
And also Planning Director and Attorney. Would it be appropriate for me to give a very brief overview of what will be put on the agenda? A very brief overview.
I would recommend not giving a brief overview. Just I think the direction is sufficient that we'll have it as an item at the next meeting. It's going to be discussion of the bylaws and also subcommittees
and policy.
And policy.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that of course the bylaws for all commissions in the city are actually adopted by the City Council. So what we will be looking at, I think there was a desire by the Planning Commission or some of the planning commissioners to look particularly at the sections of the bylaws that pertain to commissioner conduct. So a lot of many portions of the bylaws and what we can do is send out a copy. You should all have one, but we'll send out a copy prior to the meeting and you can look through those. And I think it's just a good practice regularly, let's say on an annual basis, to review the bylaws. So we can use this opportunity to do that. And then if there are particular areas that you want to look at or possibly make recommendations for changes, we can take a look at that too. And that will be the gist of the item.
Thank you. That'd be perfect. And we would look forward to have that added on to the new business for the next Planning Commission meeting.
Perfect. Thank
you. So I'm going to read off the verbiage. Any person aggrieved by any final decision of any board, commission, or department head to the city of Milpitas may appeal the decision to the City Council by filing written notice of the appeal with the city clerk within 12 calendar days of the date of said decision and paying the required fees. The time limit shall be strictly enforced. And the next agenda item is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
We'll motion to adjourn.
Second? Do I have a second?
Second.
Yes, I second.
Okay. Well, we'll go with Commissioner Albana. So I'll go ahead and take a vote. Vice Chair?
Aye.
Commissioner Chua?
Aye.
Commissioner Chuan?
Aye.
Commissioner Bilong?
Aye.
Commissioner Albana?
Aye.
And the chair's aye as well, a 6-aye for adjournment. Well, everyone and staff and commissioners, thank you very much for the meeting this evening, and stay well and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Have a great night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Good night.